we've done a bit of multiple choice, and I'm very much sure that, well, the questions will come a bit different, but I'll discuss things a little more later on. Okay, now let's keep going through the question paper. Okay, here question 2 is going to be matching two columns, column A and column B. Okay, now with this question paper we have here, it says the trend where separate technologies and functions are required, that require different devices in the past, are combined into a single device. Okay, now okay, this is what I can tell you. By analyzing this, there are certain keywords. Number 1, separate technologies, okay, and the word combined into a single device. Now I want to give you a bit of a theory. Okay, now let me just take a pen. Okay, now let's roll back a little bit. We have a desktop computer. Now a desktop computer is made up of certain components, you know, a monitor, okay, we have a mouse, okay, you have a mouse, you have a keyboard, okay, you have a if you have more or less, it also has the computer case. Okay, now these things, they come separate, but now thanks to technology they've combined all these things into one thing, and that's where you have the laptop. Okay, now the laptop basically combined all these things. Okay, now when you're combining multiple things, you know, multiple technologies into one, you basically converging them together. Okay, so that's where the ideology of convergence comes in. So you just took multiple things and you just, you know, plunged them together. For instance, like a smartwatch, you know, it has a heartbeat sensor, and it has a camera, it has a GPS, and it has, you know, a stopwatch and etc. Basically it converged different types of technologies from different devices and all their functions, and it put them into one smart piece of technology. So that ideology of putting those things into one piece of technology, it's all about convergence, as they call it. So it's convergence. So if you look at this 2.1, you're looking for the word convergence or something that has to do with converging. Now if you look over here, we don't have that, but luckily if you look at S, we have convergence. Okay, so the correct answer for that is convergence. Okay, moving on. They say it includes utility programs, softwares pre-installed onto your computer. So they are pre-installed, they come readily installed to help maintain the system. Okay, so it comes pre-installed and it's ready to maintain the system. Okay, so now let's look over here. Pre-installed, ready to maintain the system. Okay, now let's see. Grid computing, fragmentation, construct ratio, ppm, administrative tools. Now that's where the argument is. Now let me tell you a little bit about administrative tools. Okay, now let me show you an example of you see, administrative tools, these are like programs that come with the computer, and they are there to help you administer. When you're looking at the word administer in terms of computers, administering is basically maintaining. Okay, so let me give you an example of an administrative tool like CMD, okay, also known as the command prompt, which is this one. Now with command prompt, you can like play around with this thing, you know, during your own time. So it's an example of an administrative tool. You can use this thing to perform certain tasks. It comes pre-built with Windows. So this actually covers argument number 1. You see, the fact that it comes pre-installed. Okay, so now you use it to maintain the system. Yes, you do. Let me show you an example of something you can do with it. So I'm logged in as the user called administrator. I can give I can actually change the password of administrator just by using the command prompt. I can do this by saying net user, and then I can just say star or something like that. Okay, so if I wanna change the password, I can say net user. Okay, just by saying net user, I'm gonna have to specify the user that I wanna manipulate. In this case is administrator. Okay, and then after putting the asterisk, then I can type in the new password for the user. Okay, then you can see that by doing this, it's all about maintaining. So I've just changed the password to improve the security of the system. So it's all about the maintenance. So that's an example of an administrative utility. Another example of it is something like Windows Defender. It's also there to maintain the system, to make sure that your system does not get infected, or its security is not manipulated in some way. Okay, so that's an administrative tool. Those are administrative tools. Now if you look at the other options you have here, they're not exactly tools. You see, yes, a disk cleanup utility. There's a disk cleanup utility that comes pre-built with Windows, but here we are not looking at one specific tool. We're looking at programs. So it's multiple programs. They're not looking for an example of a program. They're looking for a collection of all those programs together, and all of those are called administrative tools. Okay, hope you understood that, and the correct answer for that is E, which is administrative tools. Okay, the total amount of data transferred from one point to another within a specific time span. Okay, so we're looking at the transfer of data between 2 points. Okay, now let's look at this. It's not that. Now we'll come back to this. ppm, we'll come back to that. Administrative tool has been cancelled out. Defragmentation, this is a certain process. I'm going to explain that one to you. DPI is dots per inch. This is a unit of measurement, just like centimeters is a unit of measurement, of length. Dots per inch is in like printers and quality kind of stuff. M dash, no. Aspect ratio, no. This is in terms of size. Digital divide, no. Now caching. Now look, caching is see, when a computer is running, it creates these files, to help it remember what it has just done, which will assist it when it to roll back when it makes a certain mistake, because these things were built by human beings, so they can make mistakes along the way. So when they're caching, it actually helps them to process information faster. Okay, but if you look at that, this does not work with data transfer. Okay, and then we look at now we have bandwidth. Okay, now bandwidth has to do with it has to do with data transfer. Now just by me saying that, I'm sure you can be like, that's the one. And yes, that's the one. Yes, it has to do with data transfer, and that is the one, from one point to another. But now look, NFC is also has to do with the transfer of data from one point to another. Yes, so now let's go back to this, the total amount. Okay, now I'm sure just by looking at you just by me saying that, you can see that we're talking about bandwidth there. Bandwidth is just talking about the width of the data being transferred, and that's very much it. And moving on, we have data. Where are we here? Okay, data identified on a website can be stored temporarily on the hard drive in a subdirectory of the browser. Now if data that is identified, you see, remember what I said about caching. When the computer is processing something, it creates files, and these files are left there, and it helps it to process something faster. Now that has been identified on the browser, and it is being stored. So you're using the internet and your browser is storing files. So I'm sure you can see, you can relate to what I said about caching. Okay, so it says data identified on a website can be stored temporarily on the hard drive in a subdirectory of the browser, and the next session it is retrieved. So which means if it is being retrieved in the next session, it doesn't have to reload that data. Now remember I said if it doesn't have to reload that data, then it means it's going to process that website faster. Now I said caching is all about loading faster. Okay, so I don't even need to read further. I can tell that the correct answer there is caching, which is option K. Okay, a collection of independent network computers that act together to perform a large task. So this is a teamwork. Okay, so we have, you know, like computer 1, computer 2, and computer 3. Let's say these people are trying to, you know, these computers are trying to solve a certain problem. So they're going to, you know, let's say there's this document that they're working on. This one can computate there, and this one will also computate on the same file, and the other one will also computate on the same file. So if you look at this thing, you have an entire grid of computers that are working on it, or on this thing. So it's a grid of computers, you see. So I'm sure if you saw the options as I was paging through, you can tell what the answer is. We have a grid of computers that are working on something. Okay, when computers are performing a specific task, they're computating or computing. We have a grid of computers that are computing. That's it. I'm sure. Wow, I actually explained that in a very simpler way than I thought. Okay, so I'm sure you can tell what the answer is from there. Okay, a horizontal line which is a little stronger than the hyphen and is used to express ranges and parenthetical expressions. Okay, a horizontal line. Okay, a hyphen looks like a dash. Okay, parenthetical expression. Okay, parenthetical from the word parenthesis. Parenthesis, it's brackets, isn't it? Okay, now I need to use the notepad to explain this. Okay, now let's say we have go to your house. See, this is kind of like a hyphen, isn't it? But then in this case, when you're using Word, there are things that you call the end dash. They're like they look like a hyphen basically, but then they work just like a parenthesis, or in this case your brackets, isn't it? So do we have an end dash here? Oh, there you go. So that's an end dash. And I'm sure you're asking the difference between an M dash and an N dash. Okay, how do I explain this? There's a beginning and an end. Okay, M dash and an N dash, end dash and a beginning dash. And I'm sure just by saying that you understand what that means. The beginning of the parenthesis, remember parenthesis is like brackets, an opening bracket and a closing bracket. Okay, M dash being the opening and N dash being the closing. Okay, now here we're looking at a horizontal line which is a little longer and is used to express ranges. Okay, and a parenthetical expression. So we're looking at something that, you know, like we're beginning. Okay, we're beginning something, isn't it? It ranges from beginning to end, isn't it? So in fact it's not an N dash, it's an M dash. Okay, so the correct answer there is an M dash. The different parts of the file can be scattered across the disk, causing the computer to become slower in retrieving files in order to open and save them. Okay, now look, I want to find a way to explain this. I remember saying I'm going to explain what defragmentation is. Now look, if you're using your computer and you have a certain file here, okay, So it's in a certain folder, okay, and then in that folder you have another folder, okay, and then this folder is empty, okay, that folder is empty, and then you have another folder, okay, and that folder is empty, okay, and you have another file in now under that folder. Now this file is related to this file. Now you can see that these two files, they're supposed to be together, but then they've been scattered across these empty slots of folders, okay, and these are just empty, they have no use. Now with computers, a folder, although it is empty, it actually has a file size of like 1 kilobyte or so, okay. So now when there's a way of you to bring this file back together with its friend there, and this is done with a program called the disk defragmenter, okay. So when you're defragmenting, you're basically removing these folders, okay, removing the unnecessary empty slots. So the files have been scattered across, as you can see, but now you're now taking it back, okay. So by me saying this, I'm sure you can take a little peek there at option G, which is defragmentation, as I told you I would speak about later on, and I'm sure you can tell by now that the correct answer is defragmentation, okay. I hope I explained it clearly. The ratio between the width and height of a screen, okay, the ratio, okay. Now if you look at this, you have a height and a width of a screen, okay. Now when you have this, there's a ratio between them, okay, and this ratio is called the aspect ratio, okay. So I don't know how I can deeply explain it, but I'm sure that's pretty self-explanatory. That's a aspect ratio. When you're looking at the size, width of a screen, is an aspect ratio, okay. It cannot be a contrast ratio. When you're looking at a contrast ratio, you're looking at pixel points of that screen, if you understand what I mean. Because if you look at the image that is generated by a screen, it's made up of these tiny microscopic dots, which are called pixels, and when you're measuring those pixels, you're now looking at a contrast ratio. But if it's the entire size of the screen, you're looking at the view aspect ratio, okay, and that is this, okay. The specification in which the speed of a printer is measured in, okay. So we're looking at the speed of a printer, okay. Now look, speed, now let's look at this, ppm. So printers, they print pages, okay. They print pages for a certain period of time, just like a car, it can travel a certain kilometer, a certain length at a period of time, okay, for a certain period of time. So it can travel like 10 kilometers per second, okay. Now when we look at ppm, we're looking at pages per minute, okay. So it's actually important for you to know these abbreviations: ppm, dpi, and ppm, dpi, iso, NFC, ADSL. Now I'll try to cover these in a separate video, okay. When we're looking at these components, I'll do those in a separate video, okay. It will come together with this playlist, okay. But the correct answer for that one is going to be the ppm, okay. The setting on the camera of measuring the sensitivity of light, okay. The sensitivity of light. Now let's look here from the top. I remember talking about pixels, okay. now a camera would take a picture, and the picture that thing has a certain picture quality which we measure in pixels, right? So those pixels have a way of being measured, which is a contrast ratio, isn't it? So now let's go back. A setting on the camera for measuring the sensitivity to light. How sensitive is it to light? Okay, and now let's look at this ISO here. Okay, now when you're looking at ISO, there are two kinds, two types. Now when you're looking in terms of files, okay, there's a file extension of an ISO, okay, and then there's now a setting, okay, of ISO. Okay, now when you're looking at ISO in terms of the files, an ISO is a virtual disk. Now if you look into the past, we had CDs. Now CDs had their way, they just came as a disk. You know, you just plug it into your PC and it loads up and you have your data from there. Now those disks the entire disk itself can now be taken into one file. You know, you can take all the files and put it into one file, into what we call a virtual disk image. And that virtual disk image, you can actually mount it onto your PC as if it was put into your CD-ROM. Okay, so in terms of files, that's what an ISO is. Now ISO, in terms of the camera, now we are looking at how sensitive it is to light. Okay, now as I said, I will try to explain these abbreviations in a separate video, so I just hope I didn't confuse you too much. Okay, and I believe that's very much it with the matching column A and B. Now let me just try and run through question 3, true or false. Now what I like about this thing is, if it's false, you'll have to fix the underlined word to make it true. As they give us in an example here, Facebook is an example of a social networking website, and that is true. It is a social networking website, so that your answer there would be true, isn't it? But now we have the ones where they are false. It says A, NIC has lots of hardware components such as CPU. And NIC, nah, and NIC, it's not that. Network interface chip, I don't know if that's even the abbreviation or not, but NIC has nothing to do with this. NIC is actually a piece that it's like a mini chip that goes into a PC, into a computer box, you know, usually in the desktops, and the NIC will have it brings network it expands the network capabilities of a computer. Now as I said, I'll explain these abbreviations. Now let me just nail this one. Now NIC stands for network interface card or network interface controller, something like that. So this NIC does not have a CPU. Okay, so you can see that the underlined word, the entire expression here is false. So you have to fix this word in order to make it true. Okay, so that's when you would say it is false, and the correct word that's supposed to be put here is motherboard. Okay, now let's go to the first one. A header is a text that appears within the bottom margin of all pages in a document. Okay, a header. Now a header, now I'll explain it like this. If you have a person, you'll have a head, a body, you know, and then some legs and hands. Now when you look at their legs, they'll have a foot there, they'll have a foot, so they have a head and they have a foot. Now here they're saying it appears at the bottom. Now I'm not sure if this is a weird kind of person would have a head there, but you can't have a head there. The head is actually at the top, isn't it? Now the word here is not top, it's bottom, so at the bottom we have the foot. Okay, so you can tell that this expression is false. In this case here, you're supposed to say it's false, and the correct answer that's supposed to be here is footer. So a footer is the text that appears at the bottom, which is that appears at the bottom margin of all pages in a document file. Okay, so that's the answer for that one. Okay, maybe just erase that. Okay, a checkbox allows the users to choose only one option of a given set of options. Okay, not true again. Now a checkbox, I'm sure if you remember what a checkbox is, basically you had like a box, you'll have like multiple boxes, isn't it? And you'll like select the options you want. You'll have those boxes. Now those check boxes, you'll basically like come in and take off the ones that you want and leave out the ones that you don't want. Now if you check, you do not only choose one. You cannot only choose one. Yes, you can, perhaps you can just choose on your own that you want to choose one, but then it's not limited to you only choosing one. You can choose multiple of them. Okay, so that is not true. Now if you check, there are some certain controls you can add. There was one that had a circle like this, they had a circle like this, and you would select only one, and the one that you've selected would have this dot that appears in it, and those ones were called the radio buttons. Okay, like I said, these kind of questions would want you to have a lot of experience with these. Now these were radio buttons, and they would want you to only choose one specific one. Okay, now look closely. They want you to only choose only one. Okay, now check boxes, you cannot choose one. You can actually go over than one. Okay, you can even choose two. You can, depending on how many you have, you can choose more than one. But then with radio buttons, you can have more than, you can just have one. You suppose in fact you have one. Okay, so for this it is false, and the correct answer for that is a radio button. Okay, the wildcard character can be used in the find and replace feature of a word processor. Yes. Okay, for those who don't remember what a wildcard feature is, okay, let me check out the notepad. Now when you're searching for something, you only know partially how that thing is. For instance, I have a column of words, like names of people, and you're looking for names that begin with rich, so you just know the beginning part of it, but you don't know the ending, so you just know it starts with rich. Okay, now a wildcard is basically something like putting the asterisk there. So you're telling the PC that, hey, I know it starts with rich, but whatever is after rich, I don't know. Okay, so that's the wildcard feature, isn't it? So you're also using, yes, you can use it in the find and replace. You're just saying find and replace anything that starts with rich, and then something after that, I don't know, I don't care, but I just want it to start with rich. Okay, so find it and replace it with something. Okay, so yes, this is true. Okay, moving on. A hyperlink is a built-in connection to another related web page or website, usually indicated as underlined text or graphics. Yes, this is true. Hyperlink, you're basically linking a connection to an external source, as I said previously. If you have a document and you want it to, you have a certain text and you want someone to click there and it should open like another document, basically you'll make that text to be a hyperlink, and I'm sure you've done that during your practicals. When it becomes a hyperlink, it's going to be underlined. Look at it there. It's going to be underlined, and when it's underlined in the thing or graphics, mostly it will be in blue. So it's going to be in blue. Text, and it's going to be underlined. When you click it, it's going to open the external source. Okay, so then you can see that's going to be a hyperlink. So this is true. Okay, an email program may reject file attachments based on the date of the file. False. Okay, now this is the thing. When we're looking at ICT, email programs actually limit you to the file attachments upon the size of your attachment. Okay, So you can attach files to a maximum of a certain size, not the date of that file. So if I have a file from 1992 and a file from 2003, it cannot reject one and leave the other or something like that. But then if I have a 70 gig file compared to a 1 kilobyte file, it can take the 1 kilobyte, but it cannot take the 7 gig because that will take a lot of bandwidth and all of that. So it will reject the large one. So this is actually false, and the correct answer in place of date is based on the size of the file. And that's pretty much it on section A. Now in the next one I will try to explain a bit of theory on system technologies. I'm gonna talk about RAM, hard drives, clocking, virtual reality, 3D printers, and a couple of fun technological stuff. Okay, see you on the next bit.